Hi, I'm Diane Demetre. I was recently awarded the Most Empowering Leadership and Mindset Speaker for 2024, and I'm delighted to be joining Prosper on the Online Prosperity Show. I'm going to be talking about my background in the entertainment industry and then into entrepreneurship, and I'm going to give lots and lots of insights on how you can lead a fabulous life, both personally and professionally, and tap into that potential that you know is in there, but sometimes you just don't know quite how to get it. So please join us. We're going to have a wow of a time.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we have an incredible guest who embodies boldness, leadership, and the power of transformation. Now, Diane, how are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you, Prosper. And yourself?
Fantastic. Well, I couldn't wait until you came back from Bali because I was so excited about having you on the show today. And I'm really excited about what we're about to uncover. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the invitation. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Now, for those that are tuning in, Diane Demetre is a force to be reckoned with for her captivating storytelling and empowering messages. Now, with over 40 years of experience as a business leader, speaker, trainer, and executive coach, and also an author, Diane has actually inspired countless individuals and organizations to evolve, excel, and embrace their leadership potential. Now, there's a lot of people that are talking leadership, in the marketplace right now. And I'm thinking with this 40 years of expertise today, we're going to be hearing, great insights. Now, not only that, Diane is also an award-winning speaker. She has been honored as the most empowering leadership and mindset speaker for this year, 2024, by the Australian Enterprise Awards. So congratulations on that aspect alone, Diane, because you are now partnering with visionary leaders and entrepreneurs, empowering them to help break from all the conventional thinking so that they can become bold thinkers with brave hearts. And I know you just don't speak about leadership, you live it every day. Diane, it's been 40 years. What's kept the fire burning?
I think it's just an absolute unending passion to live life to the fullest. My mantra has always been for a long, long time, fear less, dare more. And for me, the longer I'm on the planet, the more that mantra has meaning. And that is that, life gets shorter the more years you spend here. And I think as your mortality starts to really come screaming at you at a very fast speed, you have two choices in life. That is either to throw your hands up and give up, or it's to actually dare more. And so a lot of people spend too much time being risk averse to the adventures of life. I love Helen Keller, who was the American poet and author and educator, who said, life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all. And for me, that's what it is. It doesn't mean I have to jump out of planes or do base jumping, but it does mean for me that every day is an adventure, and it's up to me to look for the adventure and to look at, well, what's life bringing to me today that I've called to myself, which is an adventure. So that's what keeps me up every morning, bright and shiny, and living life to the fullest, because I figure, we don't have a lot of time on the planet. We think we do, but we don't. So that's it for me in a nutshell.
Absolutely. And thank you so much. I think that in and of itself is so profound. We could just end the episode there, but
yeah, that's it. That's what a speaker has to do, encapsulate the message in just a few words. So that's it. Hashtag fear less, dare more. And off you go.
Well, that was just one breath, Dan. I mean, I was still trying to, write the words and you're already done. And I'm like, that's a complete sentence right there. Now, Dan, you've had such a dynamic career, and obviously these insights have come from years of experience for you to actually realize this, because so many people, like you said, will still think that yes, they still have long to live and things of that nature. Could you maybe walk us through this dynamic career of yours, and then share with us what then led you on this path to leadership coaching and keynote speaking?
Well, I wiggled my nappy off when I was 4, and my parents sent me off to dance classes, which was an inspired decision on their behalf. And I spent the next 26 years in love with the entertainment industry as a dancer, an entertainer, an actress, a choreographer, and a director. And I scored the top job in Australia as the assistant director and choreographer alongside Las Vegas director Jerry Jackson back in the mid-80s. And we opened the first casino in Australia at Jupiter's Casino on the Gold Coast. And that was the first multi-million-dollar production ever staged in Australia. It was really, really big news. So that really put the Gold Coast on the entertainment map globally. And I did 2 shows with Jerry, and Jerry would come out and then he'd go back to Vegas and I would have to run the shows. And so it was into the second show that the producer called the weekly production meeting in a hotel room, which I thought was odd, but being a type A high achiever, I went along to the meeting, and when he opened the door, there was no one else in this suite but him. And I questioned, where's the props master, the musical director, where's everybody else? And he told me it was just me and him that day. And all the bells and whistles started to go off, and he made a proposition to me that I refused. And I said, I turned down his sexual advances. He promised me the top job for the next show. And when I left that room very quickly and I backpedaled out of the room, I realized I'd made myself a very powerful enemy. And within 11 days, I received a termination letter stating that I was too fat to be in the show, but not too fat to sleep with, but too fat to be in the show. So I put on my warrior cape and I thought, you're not doing this to me, buddy. And I took him to court. And at that time, we didn't have any industrial relations laws. So I could only take him to the Australian Conciliation and Arbitration Commission, where after a couple of days in court, I was promptly reinstated because there were no grounds for my unfair dismissal and sexual discrimination case. I went back to work being naive and full of passion that everything would be all right. And the doctor said that I should have some sick leave because I was at a high stress level. And whilst I was on sick leave, the producer sacked me again. So back to court we go. And after 5 days in court, the commissioner called in my legal team and said, there is no grounds for her dismissal, but I don't want to reinstate her because I'm really concerned for her health. So I didn't get reinstated. And I lost my job, I lost my identity, I lost all aspects of being able to earn an income. My name and face had been splashed across every newspaper in the country by then, dancer sacked for being too fat. The public humiliation and heartbreak was overwhelming. When I stood in the queue to get unemployment benefits, people would come up to me and say, oh, you're that fat dancer, aren't you? So for me, I was just mortified, absolutely mortified. And so I just went into hiding. And I went into hiding, humiliated, heartbroken, no money, no job, no prospect of a job. I was a whistleblower. There were no laws to protect me, unlike now. And at that stage, suicide looked my best option. That looked my best option because I had nothing left to live for, in my opinion. I'd spent over 27 years working on this career, which was promptly just stripped away from me because I refused my producer's sexual advances. And at my lowest ebb, my mother and my boyfriend took out the tablets that the doctor had given me for stress, and my dresser from the casino came in and she said, "You've got to get out of that bed." And I said, "No, I'm not getting out of that bed. I have nothing to live for." But I knew her. She was a tough love lady and she was going to stand in that threshold. And it was then that this small, still voice inside me said, "Dare more." And I listened and I got up. And from that moment on, my life changed, because at the bottom of the barrel, you can't get your way to the top. You just have to be willing to surrender and fall through. And so from there, all sorts of synchronistic moments started to happen in my life. Very odd synchronistic moments, because at that point I humbled myself to say, if there's anything out there bigger than me, I need help. And as soon as you do that, the universe does respond. There was a time I couldn't go out for weeks, months. I couldn't lift my head up. I was ashamed, and I'd done nothing wrong, but I was ashamed. And I remember one particular moment, I went to a secondhand bookstore because my other love in my life was reading. And at that stage, I had no money. No one would employ me. I was a whistleblower, so I had to go and buy somebody else's discarded books. And I was just so ashamed to do that. I mean, what a book snob was I. And now second-hand bookstores are my favourite place to hunt around for hours. Anyway, I went into this bookstore and I'm walking through going, what will I buy? What, I don't know what to get. And boom, literally a book jumped off the shelf. And I had my boyfriend there at the time and he witnessed it. It sprung off the shelf, landed at my feet, and it was my showbiz icon, Shirley MacLaine, and it was the first book she wrote, Out on a Limb. I paid my $2 for this little, tattered paperback. I went home, I consumed it, and in the book, Shirley MacLaine talks about she was living in paradise but focusing on hell. And I thought, good line. And she had gone through a crisis, and she said when she went to sleep, she asked to meet herself. And so I thought, good advice, Shirley, good advice. So as I drifted off to sleep that night, I said, I would like to meet myself. And that's when the epiphany happened. The usual stories you hear of people who have epiphanies, they all have a very similar science quantifiable background. There was light, there was the change in the room temperature, there was an immense feeling of joy, and everything shifted. And from that moment on, I've been on a conscious journey for the last 37 years on finding out what life has to offer and how do I actually create the life that I desire and deserve most. And then everything changed. And so my new career took off as a stress and life skills therapist, and then I moved into event management, and I worked with Disney, and I worked with Robina Town Centre, and I just worked with so many great corporations. And then I went into business myself and ran multi-million-dollar businesses here and overseas. And in all that time, I've never wavered from my mastery methodology. And so with everything I've done, I've incorporated that mastery methodology, whether it's leading people, training my teams, working with corporations. There is a methodology that you can use in your life as self-leadership as well as in your business. And I've cultivated that methodology over many, many years and refined it. And that's why now as a speaker, I go on the stage and I share that methodology. So that's it in a nutshell.
Absolutely. I'm loving these nutshells because it's all just neatly packaged in the
That,
bowl.
that was a fairly long one, though. That was a fairly long one.
It's really getting us into the whole story. And thank you so much for that, Diane. Now, I just wanted to take you back a little bit. So you did spend 27 years in the arts and entertainment sort of industry, and this was your way of being and things of that nature. So could you just maybe let us know what was taken away from you?
My identity. My identity, because being on the stage and dancing and performing and bringing joy to an audience was my identity. It still is. That's why I've gone back on the speaking stage. So for me, there's no safer place in the world than to walk out on a stage with lights on your face and have thousands of people out there that you can share joy with. Because whenever I speak or whenever I go into corporations and I do facilitating or I'm executive coaching, that little voice in my head always says to me, go have fun. Go have fun. It's time to play. So when I'm doing the work that I do, it's always about the play. And I look at it this way. We're always big on all of this AI, artificial intelligence. And I talk about universal intelligence. Let's go way beyond. Let's go into universal intelligence. And I figured that as human beings, we're all here and we're all cable ready. So when I do what I do, I'm always looking at people, and I figure that here in our solar plexus region is where we plug in and play. So when I go out and I do my speaking, or when I'm working with corporations or with executive leaders in board meetings, my thing is, how do I plug in and play with you? How do I make that universal connection, energetic connection between us so that we can accelerate this time we have together? And that's where I come from, it's a quantum world of energy psychology. And the more we can tap into that and plug in and play with each other, the faster our results come and the more joyous we are and the healthier we are. It's all about health, wealth, and happiness. So you just have to plug in and play for that. But we get far too intense and analytical.
Absolutely. And the one thing that you've mentioned is your identity. And usually they say wherever you are, there you are. I can only imagine going into Woolies or Coles and everybody recognizes you and you are in that, unemployment line and people are actually naming you and shaming you instead of supporting you and being there for you. Now, how did this experience now shape the leader and mentor you are today? Because somebody, Diane, someone would have literally curled into a curveball or fetus position and just wallowed in whatever stuff that was going on there, but you rose from that, and it literally became an even bigger platform than maybe the one that you had in the local theater.
Absolutely. It was just, and how can I put it? There was that driving voice, that driving desire in front of me to just keep going, keep reading, keep experiencing, just keep going. And sometimes you see on social media platforms, they say, if you had a chance to tell your younger self what you should do when you were younger and you could only say it with 2 words, what would those 2 words be? And mine would be go within. Because one of the things that I learned at that time, once I stood up and I went, right, okay, dare more, was all of these epiphanous moments happened. And another one that happened was going into a new age bookstore at the time, a different one. And that's where I started my meditation journey. And as soon as I started to meditate, that was it. I was hooked. I was hooked in the power and the passion and the clarity that comes with meditation. And of course, as a dancer, I realized later that dancing was my moving meditation, that whenever I danced and gave myself over to the music, I was in a meditative state. It didn't matter that I was exerting all this enormous energy. Within me, my brain waves were dropping into that wonderful gamma state of creativity. And I was fully aware, but in a meditative state. So then meditation is the doorway. Meditation is the doorway to health, wealth, and happiness. However you meditate is up to you. Some people meditate as runners, sprinters, people who love to run. You know, they'll get up every morning at some ungodly hour and they'll run for hours, or cyclists or things like this. And they get in that zone, in that place. And it's in there that all the messages start to happen. And you see, during this time, I was an absolute unequivocal mess. I would curl up on the bathroom floor and sob and sob and sob and sob and sob. And I often say that I got messages from the bathroom floor. I got messages from the bathroom floor because that mess became my message. And I made a decision within me. It was time to master my mess. And that meant I had to master my mindset, my energy, and my skills. And that's the mastery methodology I now share with people, how to master your mindset, your energy, and your skills. And so that was my message from the bathroom floor.
Absolutely. I hope those bathroom floors were clean enough, at least, you know. But in essence, one of the things that you mentioned there, Diane, was there was a still small voice. Now, indulge me here for a little bit. As an actor or a performer or somebody who goes on stage, usually you embody a character or a persona or somebody else that's pretty much not you, and then have to present that to the world as if that person would have been you. Would there have been a distinction at that time to really separate that voice, to know that that was internally you? And the second part of this question is this just a Diane thing, or can anybody have access to this voice?
So first question is, as an actor, I wouldn't have classed myself as a method actor. So a method actor is like Leonardo DiCaprio. Leonardo DiCaprio will totally embody the psyche and the persona of the character he plays. I was, as a dancer, I was in a different discipline. So I could act and be that character, but at the same time, there was that part of me that always was aware of what was happening, who's coming in stage left, where are we going, etc., etc., etc. So I always had that awareness that was sitting there all the time when I was performing or acting. So it depends on your style and your discipline. You know, from my point of view, if the place was burning down, let's say, I'd probably jump out of character and say, right, everybody, exits. Whereas Leonardo DiCaprio would probably, being a full method actor, would be going, he'd stay in character and off he'd go. Do you know what I mean? And maybe he'd lead people, but all in character. I don't know. So that's a bit of a difference. From that point of view, in that still small voice within, everybody has at their disposal an opportunity to connect with their consciousness. Now, some people will call that angels, some people will call it God, some people will call it their higher self, some people will call it their inner being. The names and the labels are all semantics in my world. It's about developing a relationship of absolute trust with that part of you that is not encumbered by your negative beliefs and conditionings and doubts and fears. There is that perfectly pristine part of you, that consciousness. And that is what I talk about when I talk about the still small voice within. I do a lot of teaching of meditation, and people go, well, how do you know whether it's you talking to yourself or whatever? And I say, the still small voice within very rarely turns up like John Huston's voice out of Moses as the voice of God. But there is a quality to it. So the key with it is to actually continue meditating on a regular, committed basis. So if that's 15 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, and set up the ritual of that. And then over time, as you start to get into that wonderful gamma space of brain waves where you are still and you don't have the chaos going on, that eventually you will start to feel or experience or hear, or it'll be a voice in your mind, and you will start to be able to identify it. It's a little bit like, you know how mother chicks are penguins. Penguins are a perfect example. There'll be thousands of penguins out, and all the little baby penguins will be all running around, but the mother penguin and the baby chick will know each other's voice, and to us it just sounds like a cacophony of noise. That's what it comes down to, is that with practice and with timing and with attunement and alignment, you start to know the voice, whether it's the voice of your mind going, and that always has that energy of chaos and stress. That is never your intuition. Your intuition is always calm. It's always loving. It's always relaxed. It's always with clarity, never with judgment. And over time, you start to get a real attunement to it. I wrote my memoir, M.E.D.I.A, in 2022, and I go through my entire story in M.E.D.I.A, and I didn't want it to be a narcissistic memoir. It's all about me. I wanted it to be a teaching memoir. So what I've done in the memoir is at the end of each chapter, I've included some of the 50 insights I learned along the way in this journey, so that people can actually read the book, read the insights at the end of the chapter, and then put them into their own lives. And for some readers, I say, you know, if you find some of it a little overwhelming at times, you can use the book as an I Ching. So you can flip through the pages, see where they open up, and then there could be very well a message for you that day. You can use it like people use cards, tarot cards or angel cards. So that's why I wrote M.E.D.I.A, not because it was cathartic to me, because I'd already done the work on everything I'd been through, but because I wanted to share these insights and let people know, because I know it's really hard when you're in the middle of something like this, when you're in the crisis and you're in the grief and you think it's never going to get better and you're never going to get over it, you know, and you go through the 5 stages of grief and, you know, you want to murder somebody and then you go in, and I understand it. And so I wanted to write this book so people could come on the journey with me and go, oh, is that how you moved out of that? Is that how you moved out of that? And with my story, it took me 15 years to tell my story. I was so ashamed. And eventually what happened is I was doing a women's empowerment program for the government. And a woman said, aren't you that dancer? And I went, oh, no. She said, I remember you. You were that dancer who took that producer to court all those years ago. She said, I was a lawyer at the time. We were studying law. And do you know that everybody at the university was barracking for you? The whole law faculty put that case on the table for us all to study. She said, it was amazing. And she said, do you know that because of your case, the Industrial Relations Act 1988 was introduced into Australia? And of course I went, no. And so my experience had just changed the industrial relations laws in this country, and I never knew about it. And so for the first time in all that time, I felt validated that to stand up, to fear less and dare more did make a difference. And that therefore, moving forward in my life, I needed to make sure that anybody I came in contact with who was willing to listen realized that when they do fear less and dare more, when they do stand up, when they do step up, when they do speak out based on their integrity, not based on their anger, but based on their integrity, the road may look rough and it may be crooked and you may fall down a few times. You're never going to die with regret because you lived with integrity.
No, now, Diane, some people set out to change the world and they make a mess of it. You unintentionally did this, in the way of who you were being and who you were becoming. And obviously it was, like you said, at the expense of maybe your reputation and everything else that sort of came along with that. And, you do mention that your identity also took a bit of a beating. But throughout all this, you have mentioned two tools that I think a lot of people really need to focus on when they're in the eye of a storm, which the first one is reading. You mentioned the book from Shirley MacLaine that sprung on you and, almost took your eye out in the process. I mean, you had nothing left and the book wants to do that to you as well. And meditation. So let's just maybe uncover both of these separately, but starting off with reading, because you've then gone on and created something that people can utilize so they don't go through what you went through. Walk us through why it is important, first of all, to read.
For me, it was critical because at that stage, after having that epiphany moment reading Shirley MacLaine's Out on a Limb, it dawned on me that I can't be the only person in the world who's gone through this. And so off I went. And then I consumed as many autobiographies and memoirs as I could. Not biographies written by other people, but autobiographies and memoirs. Behind here is my library, which is just walls filled with books. And so, because I never throw out a book, they're very precious to me. So I just read everything I could get my hands on. And I realized that there were just about everybody in the world had gone through what I'd gone through. And as I started to read their stories, it also developed more curiosity for me to look at, well, what are the options or the processes or what else is out there? And that led me into the metaphysical world, which was very big, and the New Age movement, which was very big in the 90s. And so then I consumed everything I could, from the Seth material through to the Raj material to the Northwest Foundation for A Course in Miracles. And I just grabbed everything I could. And I just kept reading and reading and reading, and I journaled everything. So I've got notebooks everywhere filled with great information. And even today, I'm reading Lynn McTaggart's The Intention Experiment, having read The Field. So I'm always reading Dr. Joe Dispenza, whatever it is, I'm always looking at what's happening and where's the research being done, where's the science behind it now, because everything we were talking about 30 years ago is now being backed by science, and it's fabulous. It's like, yes, another validation. And so that's where the reading came in. So I'm still an avid reader, and I think it's really important for people to put down their devices and get a book in their hands. There's nothing like paper in your hands because it keeps you focused. And so paperbacks, really good. We need to keep them going. And then the next aspect is meditation. And meditation, most people give up on because most people think, well, what's going on? There's nothing happening. That's the point. The point is the stillness and the silence. And so, silence really is the cornerstone to life, because once you're willing to train your brain and teach your body to sit and then tame the environment around you, that's when you start to truly take control of your life. But if you're going to be at the beck and call of your body who goes, well, we better get up and do this, of course you're going to have high levels of stress. May not be that day, but I can guarantee it's going to come. Train your brain, teach your body, and tame the environment through meditation. And you will find, guaranteed, if you persevere, like any skill, you will get better at it. And then you will start to reap the rewards of that wonderful mind, energy, and skills mastery.
Diane, I don't know if you've lived in the world that we live in today. There's things to see, people to do, TikTok to watch, social media to scroll. I need to see what everyone is saying about me, just in case I might lose myself and my identity and things of that nature. And did I mention, there's Netflix, Disney, all the subscriptions that I'm subscribed to just make sure that I am constantly bothered. And then I'm listening to Spotify here and there. And then you want me to add books and sit still. Where do I then walk my dog? I don't know, Diane, can you please just put me out my misery right now?
As I say to people, if you can't find 15 minutes a day in your life to meditate, you have no life. 15 minutes. And so, there are a few things. Some of you got to stop the scrolling and the sifting. Got to stop that. That's going to kill you. It just numbs your brain. Humans now supposedly only have an attention span of less than a goldfish. One of the most critical aspects that employers look for is focus.
Are we still here then? Oh, sorry.
There you go. So focus is one of the highest ranking skills that employers look for. It is, because focus is critical. Most people don't even know how to focus, let alone do it. So focus first. You have to focus, and you have to ensure that what you're working on. As I say to people and companies, if you put the phone in the drawer and turn it to silent. You should not have the phone beside you. You should be able to see it. Out of sight, out of mind. Put it in the drawer. If you can't leave that phone turned to silent for 30 minutes in the drawer, you have an addiction. You're an addict.
Is this?
And then you slot it into your time during the day to go to the drawer, get up, shift your focus, go to the drawer, turn it on, check your messages, respond, turn it off, back in the drawer, back to work. That is such a simple focus exercise that you can do day in, day out. Very simple, really helps to train your brain. And then you must not take your phone to the bedroom. Never, 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 never. And you must not look at your phone for at least 90 minutes before you go to sleep at night. Everybody thinks a phone is a benign object. It's not. It's full of electromagnetic frequencies that are constantly bombarding you. That's why so many people have sleep issues. They've got these phones in their bedroom, and that electromagnetic frequency is bombarding you. Worse still, they put the phone up next to their head somewhere. Boom, boom, boom. No wonder people don't sleep. You've got to keep the phone out of the bedroom. Or if you are taking it in, you turn it to aeroplane mode and you keep it away from your head. And you don't look at it first thing in the morning. First thing in the morning, you lie on your bed and you give appreciation. Another important skill. Appreciation for your beautiful pillow, for your comfy bed, that you have shelter, that you can take 5 minutes to think to yourself now about what a wonderful day. Today is my day, and it's going to be a fabulous day because everything always works out for me. That's my morning affirmation. I taught it to my 9-year-old granddaughter. She says it every day. Today is my day, and it's going to be a fabulous day because everything always works out for me. How did it work out for you today? Really good, Nana. I said, that's why. You're training your brain. Your brain is like a pharmacist. You give it the script and your brain will fill it. Bad script, bad results. Good script, good results. It's so simple, but people want to make it really complex because that gives them an excuse not to succeed. And it gives them an excuse to live a mediocre life. And it gives them an excuse not to evolve. And so I work from the other point of view. I look at, well, what's the reason for me to fulfill my potential? What's the reason for the company to actually make profits? What's the reason for the people in the company to perform on purpose with purpose? So it's a shift. It's a shifted perspective.
Absolutely. I like the pharmacy analogy there because I actually just remembered when I was getting a prescription from my pharmacy and he's all the way up there and I had to look up. And have you ever seen that whole transaction that you get with your pharmacist? But you've been called evolutionary by your clients and people that you work with. First of all, what does that mean? And what does that mean to you? And how are you helping other people evolve their leadership roles?
My mission for as long as I can remember now has been to facilitate the evolution of human consciousness. So that's what I'm here to do, to facilitate the evolution of human consciousness. So the evolutionary tag has come from that because I don't go into organizations or go onto stages or do executive coaching to actually set the goal and get the goal. My role is to let's evolve the way we think, we feel, and the way we act. Let's dare to think and feel and act differently. And in doing so, we move further past the goal, which is just a stepping stone. We've got to get further past that to begin with. And I move people into the idea of intentionality, because intentionality creates your reality. That's really important for people to get. And that's where the evolutionary tag comes from, because my role is to push the parameters of human conditioned thinking and move into the idea of human consciousness. And so intentionality creates your reality in business or in life. So whatever reality you currently have now has been set in place by the way you think, feel, and act back here with your intentionality. And people would say, well, I didn't intentionally mean to be sick. I didn't intentionally mean to be poor. I didn't intentionally mean to be alone. No, but what's happened, you may not have intentionally done it, but you have set an intention in place by the way you were thinking, feeling, and acting then. So intentionality creates reality. You want a different reality, you have to create a new intentionality by daring to think, feel, and act differently. And once you start to get that loop, once you start to understand that you actually are the master of your mess, of your mindset, your energy, and your skills, that's when everything shifts. And you start to realize that you are the captain of your soul, the master of your destiny. But you've got to be willing to step up and take responsibility and broaden your thinking and go, okay, all right, well, let's have a look at it. Quantum physics has been proving this for decades. It's called the observer effect. The observer effect. And we literally can change what is happening in front of us through observation, because we are all consciousness. As Einstein said, everything is energy. Everything is energy. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy, he said. This is physics. So if you don't like the reality you currently have, that's because you're matching the frequency of a reality. If you want a better reality, as I train and facilitate and talk about, is you've got to lift your resonance. You've got to choose for a higher energy, which is optimism, love, passion, positive expectation, hope, all of those wonderful, wonderful high energetic emotions, because every emotion we feel affects every cell of our body in some way. It triggers chemical responses in our brain. So we have a whole pharmacy, again, of happy drugs up there. But we're never going to be releasing endorphins and all of those endorphins and dopamine and everything else if we're like this all the time and blaming and judging everybody else. We can't sit there wanting a happy life if we're calling everybody else, fools and morons, and what would they know? It's just not going to happen. So it's all about us. It's about us. It's our reality. It's nobody else's reality, and nobody can influence my reality. That's what I had to come to terms with. I could have sat there and I could still be sitting here like an awful lot of women saying, well, it was his fault. He treated me badly. He perpetrated a crime on me. But where does that get me? And at the end of the day, I stayed. You see, we have to take responsibility for what happens around us and to us. That doesn't mean we let people off the hook, but it means that we realize that this is a bit of a tango going on here, because there can never be perpetrators without victims. Now there'll be a whole stack of people listening this go right off the deep end at that one, but there can't be. All right, I'll back that up with a bit of research. There was research done in an American prison many years ago, and they brought in the top 100 rapists, the most violent rapists, and they did this experiment where they put individually these criminals into a viewing room, and they played video footage of 5 different women walking down the street, and with each criminal, they asked, out of these 5 women, who would you choose to attack? And overwhelmingly, they picked the same woman. And they said their choice was based on how she walked, her energy level, and that she looked like they'd be able to get her and she wouldn't fight back. So everything that is going on in our reality, we are on some level, most times unconsciously attracting to us by our energy and our vibration, because everything is energy. Mm-hmm. And once we start to actually just be curious about the quantum world and the science behind it, everything starts to make sense. And what that does is that liberates us. It liberates us to live better lives, because then we start to dare to think, feel, and act differently. And once we start to do that, that's when things start to shift, because luck has nothing to do with it.
Absolutely. I quite like that. I like that a lot. So in essence, you are reiterating, was it your friend that says you're living in paradise, but you're focusing on hell?
Yeah, Shirley MacLaine wrote that. Yeah. Wow. Living in paradise, but focusing on hell. And as I say, we all know that saying, where your focus goes, energy flows. But there's one part that I've tagged on the end of that, which is really important, and results will surely follow. So where your focus goes, your energy flows, but results will surely follow. It's not a one-way street. You will get the results back from that. So whatever you focus on, you will get. So if you're focusing on the positive, you're going to get positive if your energy's flowing with it too. And if you focus on the negative and your energy's going to the negative, you're going to get the negative results. Results always come back. Results are the feedback from your reality. You want to know how you're going in life, in business? Look at your results. And then go back to yourself and go, right, what is it that I'm focusing on or feeling or being in the flow of that is creating these results? And what do I need to focus on? And what do I need to feel? And what's the state of being, of flow, that I need to be in to create the results I want? And it is liberating, because then we truly do master our destiny.
Absolutely. So in your book, Dare, you actually speak about taking control of one's destiny, which literally means no more pointing fingers at people and no more blaming anyone for anything that befalls us. Because based on what you have mentioned, we literally have a lot more control than we give ourselves, reason to believe. Now, you're very good at nutshells. What is the one first step that someone should just take if they're feeling stuck in life or in business, or they're just going through something that they can't see any recourse for or any end in sight? Because so many people might be going through something like that. We collectively did during the pandemic, where we didn't know how long we're going to keep coughing into our elbows and socially distancing. And now we having all these after effects, which are presenting
Absolutely.
in different formats, and people no longer know how to sort of cope with that. It's just the one thing.
One thing, right. The best thing to do is practice appreciation. So in your day, appreciate even the tiniest thing, because appreciation leads to a shift in consciousness. So you might say, I have nothing to appreciate. I don't have a job, or my partner's just left me, or my health is really bad. What you focus on, you will get. So we all have something to appreciate. It can be as simple as walking outside and looking up into the starry night, or looking up into the skies, and appreciating that you live on an earth, on a planet, that's natural state is a state of well-being. And by some wonderful miracle or universal consciousness, it keeps rotating perfectly, doing what it does, going around the sun. Now, if you stop long enough and think about that, that's something pretty big to be appreciative of. It can be as simple as going and getting a cup of coffee in the morning and sitting with your cup of coffee and being conscious about your cup of coffee and appreciating that you have enough money, and if that's all you've got, enough money to be able to have a lovely hot cup of coffee and to take 5 minutes out or 10 minutes out to enjoy your coffee. After all, you're not living somewhere where bombs are being dropped, hopefully. So there is always something that you can appreciate. There is always something in our lives that we have and we take for granted that other people would desperately want. And once we start to appreciate what appears to be the mundane and the things we've taken for granted, we start to elevate our energy just a little bit. And we start to feel a small smile come to our face. And as that happens, that triggers a little bit more endorphins in our brain, a little bit more dopamine, and all of a sudden the cycle starts and off we go. And so when we're driving in our vehicles, don't look for the road rage people who are going to cut in front of you. They'll be there. Vroom, vroom, vroom. Drive along happily. Put on your favourite music. I used to do this all the time and I still do it. Put on the music that makes you feel good. Don't listen to talkback radio because all they do is bitch, whinge and complain about everything that's wrong. Turn that off. Turn on some really cool, groovy music and happily drive yourself to wherever you're going. So allow yourself to start to appreciate all of these things and don't be doing the scroll and the looking and all of that, because all you're doing is comparing yourself to somebody else's self. You're comparing your internal self to somebody's external. And I could just about guarantee you most of it is make-believe. You may as well watch Disney. So don't look at it. Just don't look at it. And never ask somebody's opinion of what you do or listen to anybody's opinion of who you are or what you do unless you value their opinion. If there's somebody you would go to and say, could you please help me? But if they're not somebody that you would do that to, just don't listen to it. We spend too much time. And I learned a long time ago, don't cry over anything or anyone that would never cry over you.
Absolutely. Now, with all this said, I visually feel like you're giving people permission to literally live their best lives, because once you liberate yourself from all these humdrum and to switch off that FM radio, you literally are free to be, do, and have, like you said, health, wealth, and the relationships that come along with it. I mean, we do accept and appreciate that, that freedom that you've actually unlocked for people there. But I was also asking for one more permission, Diane. When somebody cuts me in the road, I mean, I'll still hang up on that. If somebody cuts me in the road and when we meet at a red light, could you give me permission to at least wave at them, because we still arrived at the same time anyway, and I don't know what they were rushing for.
One of the things that is always good is that you can always smile sweetly, and in your mind and out of your heart you go, I bless and release you. So if you can do it with love and blessings and releasing without a scowl and with no judgment, give it your best shot. I often do that, and they look at me and they go, and they don't know what to do. But you see, I've shared a little bit of love, a little bit of blessing, and then off they go. And if nothing else, I've shifted the energy, and I've shifted the energy for me. What they do with it is entirely up to them, So
Absolutely.
I just go my merry little way, because at the end of the day, who are they? They have no impact in my life. Who cares? Like, who cares? Sweetheart, you're just giving yourself a bad day. You're not going to give me a bad day.
I appreciate that. I'm actually going to just cut that snippet and play it over and over in my because you've given us permission. But for those that really want to go deep and find out a little bit more about, how you can possibly help Diane, what will be the best way that people can be in touch with you?
Probably just go to my website, which is dianedemetre.com. And also, jump onto LinkedIn. I'm under Diane Demetre Speaks. And, connect with me, hit the little bell for notifications. I'm always putting up various bits and pieces there of what's happening. And if you're looking for a keynote speaker for your conference, for your organisation or annual conference, please, I do a lot of keynote speaking, and I come out and because of my entertainment background, I'm a little different to most keynote speakers, because I come out, doing the big entrance, and I get everybody up being bold, big and brave. And I also go into corporations and companies and do leadership and teams training as well as facilitation. And then if you're looking for something to go deeper, you'll also find on my website my executive coaching. And I do one-on-one results coaching with people to help people move through where they want to go as quickly as possible. So there's lots of different avenues you can work with me if you like. And please, I have on my website too a Calendly link on my contact page. So just book in to have a 30-minute call with me. And there's no obligation. I just like having a chat to people too and meeting people and finding out how they're going and what's happening in their lives and if there's any way I can help or add value.
Absolutely. Well, I really do appreciate you giving us those inroads to you. And for those that are watching, please, no road rage on your way to Demetre's website or whatever traffic place you're going to be frequenting. I will put all those links in the show notes so that people can get started. Now, I mean, obviously, we started off, with the past, your 27 years in the entertainment industry and now the 37 years of you helping others be, do, and have. So I viscerally believe in life, we're here to live, to learn, and to contribute. So obviously, for you to be able to live your best life, you need to have learned the lessons that allow you to then be the one in front at the podium, sending the elevator down for those that have learned. And I feel like your story really does touch up on all those elements and a whole lot more for those that are going to be engaged with you. But now that you've obviously excited us about who you are and everything else that's there, what's next? What can we expect in the future from Diane moving forward?
I'm highly intuitive and highly organised. So at this point in time, I am being guided to stay on the stage, on the speaking stage. I don't see myself ever stopping, so I'll just keep going, whatever it is. To be honest, there is political aspirations there. So that's on a back burner somewhere, and who knows what will happen in the future. But I just focus on what it is I want to share and leaving a legacy that when my name is mentioned, people will think of me fondly and that people will go, yes, she gave me an insight, or I remember, yes. And so that for me is probably what my focus is on now, is what is the very best legacy I can leave over these next 30 odd years, because I intend to be here and celebrate my 100th without a doubt. So I'm only 2/3 of the way through. I've still got it, not quite another third, but I've got at least another 20 odd years in front of me. So that's good.
Congratulations. And that's just an amicable way to live. And also just sharing that with, people just really gives them a glimmer of hope, no matter what they're going through in their life, that, hey, look at Diane, these too shall pass. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate you being on the call today.
Thank you, Prosper. All the best, and may you live long and prosper.
Absolutely. You got that right. And I really appreciate that you shared with us your incredible journey and the powerful lessons that you've learned along the way. For those that are watching right now, if you're feeling inspired to evolve into a bold thinker and a brave leader, I highly recommend that you check out Diane's work, especially her keynote, Lead Forward, Further, and Faster. And if you got all you needed from this particular episode, I encourage you to share this with somebody who's going through stuff or who might be going through a moment in their life which they might not be able to see the end in sight. They actually might just need to stop whatever they're doing and, as Diane says, listen to that still small voice. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe to the Online Prosperity Show for more empowering interviews like this. Until next time, bye for now.